In a world that's always screaming at us, telling us who we're supposed to be, we're going to talk about something different. We're going to look at how one of the wisest figures in early Islam went searching for his own reflection, his own biography, not out in the world, but inside a sacred text.
So let me just ask you, straight up, where is your biography written? I'm not talking about personality tests or your social media profile. The source material for this explainer suggests it's written down somewhere much, much more profound.
Okay, so let's get right into this with the story of a man named Al-Anaf ibn Qais. He was a revered early Muslim, known for his incredible wisdom and humility. And he went on this deeply personal quest to find his own description, to find himself inside the pages of the Quran.
Now, what would make someone do that? Well, it was this verse right here. This idea that somewhere in this book was his mention, a description of who he really was. So he opened the Quran and he began to search.
He decided to start at the very top. He went looking for his reflection among the descriptions of the spiritual elite, measuring himself against the absolute highest standard he could find.
He read about these people who spent their nights in prayer, asking for forgiveness in those quiet moments right before dawn. People who saw their wealth as a right for the poor and the deprived.
And after reading this, he was just honest with himself. He looked at their level of devotion and said, I do not recognize myself among these people. He knew right away. He didn't measure up.
But he didn't stop. He kept turning the pages, reading about other groups, people who give whether things are easy or hard, people who can control their anger and just forgive. He read about those who would put others first, even when they had almost nothing themselves, and those who, even when they were furious, chose mercy.
And again, this time with tears welling up in his eyes, he came to the exact same conclusion. It was this heartfelt, humbled admission of his own flaws. "O Allah, I do not recognize myself among these people." So if he's not one of the best, then where is he? He takes this really drastic turn and starts reading the descriptions of people at the complete opposite end of the spectrum, the ones destined for punishment. He reads about those who will be asked, "What brought you to hellfire?" And their answer? It was a total neglect of the absolute basics. "We were not of those who prayed, nor did we feed the poor." And here his reaction was instant, firm. He just recoiled from this description saying, "O Allah, I disassociate myself from these people." He knew he wasn't a saint, but he was sure he wasn't one of them either. He was completely lost in the middle. And this brings us to the turning point. After realizing he wasn't in the highest heavens or the lowest depths, he just kept reading, searching for an honest reflection of someone who tries but also messes up. And then he found it. This verse. It describes others who have admitted their sins, people who have mixed good deeds with bad ones, and who are living in this state of hope that maybe, just maybe, God will forgive them. And right there, in that moment, you can just imagine the profound relief and recognition. He finally saw himself, not as a saint, not as a total sinner, but as a real human being striving right there in the middle. He said, "I am one of these. This is my mention."
So here's the question that just smacks you in the face. If a man of his spiritual stature, a giant of piety and wisdom, found his own description in this verse, where do the rest of us stand? Aren't we also the ones who mix good deeds with bad, just hoping for mercy?
Now this whole story perfectly sets the stage for a really big problem we have today. The source text for this explainer argues that we've been distracted by a dangerous spiritual habit. We've stopped using the Quran for what it was meant for. And this brings us to the core idea here. The Quran is supposed to be a mirror, something you hold up to yourself to see your own flaws, to reflect, and to seek mercy. But way too often, we've turned it into a magnifying glass, a tool we use to inspect other people, to find their faults, and to stick them in little boxes.
So if judging others is the problem, what's the solution? Well, this is where the source shifts gears, moving from our flawed judgment in this life to the incredible power of community in the next.
Now listen to this. According to a powerful hadith, one of the most intense arguments on the Day of Judgment won't be about money or status. It's going to be the believers pleading, even arguing with God for their brothers and sisters who have been cast into the fire. And the scene plays out like this. The believers in paradise will say, "Our Lord, what about our brothers? They prayed with us, they fasted with us, they went on pilgrimage with us.
And in his immense mercy, God will tell them, "Go and bring out whomever you recognize." And they will literally pull their friends from the fire. And even after all that, God's mercy keeps flowing, and he commands that anyone with even a tiny speck of faith be saved.
This reality is what led the great scholar Al-Hassan al-Basri to give this timeless advice. He said, "Increase your number of believing friends, for they have intercession on the day of resurrection." He got it. He knew that our connections are like currency in the afterlife.
And this really brings us to the core takeaway. The goal isn't to be the accuser, the judge. It's to be the friend who pulls another person up. Instead of pointing a finger, we're supposed to extend a hand. Because we are all people who have mixed good deeds with bad.
So this whole journey, from looking in the mirror of the Quran to holding on to the hand of brotherhood, it all leaves us with one final, deeply personal question we have to think about.
The question isn't, who can I criticize today? It's this, when the people of paradise enter and I'm not there, who's going to notice that I'm missing? Who will plead to God on my behalf? And just as importantly, who will I be looking for?